right. Let me just start with the syllabus. So I'm going to share the syllabus with you. I assume you can all see the syllabus. All right.
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, the first thing is about office hours. I debated whether I should have published office hours or I should just ask you to make an appointment with me. I realized that it is much better to ask you to make an appointment with me, and that is what every student did last semester in all the three sections of the in all three sections that I taught. I mean, I taught only one section of 372 last semester, but I also taught two sections of ICS 140, and that worked out very well. I will be available almost any time starting at 11 in the morning till late into the night, except on Tuesdays and Thursdays when I teach at 6. So anytime that you wish, I should be able to meet with you unless I have another meeting. Okay. Then this is object-oriented programming, design, implementation, analysis, all that stuff. And one thing I can promise you is that you will learn a ton of stuff in this course. And all of them very applied stuff, things you can actually transfer to work, but it is not just technology. There is a little bit of technology, like any computer science, like most computer science courses, but this is very current design and implementation techniques that you will find mighty useful if you were to develop stuff in the object-oriented way. Now, you need to have completed Math 215, discrete mathematics, and ICS 240. And you should know Java. Of course, if you completed 240 or 141 here at Metro, you know Java. Okay. Now, one thing I blundered, I am very embarrassed and um, extremely sorry about it, is that for some reason, I did not end up placing a book order to the bookstore. I apologize for that. It was entirely my mistake. I remember writing that message, but I probably did not hit the send button. That is what happened. But it doesn't matter. It is my mistake. I asked the bookstore if they would be able to get copies. They haven't replied, but you can purchase the book from Amazon, or you can get an e-copy from the publisher directly. So that is the status of the book. Once again, I plead your understanding. It is my mistake. I'm very sorry about it.
Oh,
So,
you're also saving us some money here. So
I'm sorry.
you're also saving us some money here.
But yeah, without the book, it may be a little hard to uh, navigate through the coursework. Coursework. I will be posting some documents online, but that may not be sufficient. Okay, but I think if you are very what do you call careful, you might be able to manage with the lecture videos and the PowerPoint slides and the problem sets that we do in class, you may be able to uh, learn just as effectively as
Um,
you, yeah.
but on that note, is it okay if we haven't got the book for the first week? Like we won't. Like, is it okay?
The first couple of weeks is okay,
Okay.
but there are certain chapters that I cannot post online because of copyright agreements, because I uh, co-authored the book, and even though it is my book, I cannot post everything that is there because the publisher can sue me, So that is the reason I can't do that. But there are certain things that we are rewriting, and that is not with the publisher. So those things I can post. Mm, Okay. So there are certain chapters that,
Professor,
yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
yeah, no problem.
So there, the maybe I looked at the wrong thing, but I ordered a book the bookstore had that was a different book. So I assume what you have there in the syllabus is what I should have, not what the
Yes,
bookstore has
correct.
listed,
Yes, that is
presumably.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Pardon me, sir. One more question regarding the book. You're saying in the syllabus that it's a 2018 copyright year. I was researching that online. Is it the second edition of the book? Am I
Yes,
right?
even the first edition is just fine.
Okay.
So if you
Thank
get a cheap version, used version from the first edition, that should be just as good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you wouldn't miss almost anything. You wouldn't, right. You miss almost nothing. Yeah. Then I taught this course, as I said, in the fall semester, and it was a very pleasant experience. And so I decided not to change a whole lot for this semester. So but there are a few things I want to tweak, because I think that will enrich the course. But otherwise, I am keeping the same approach. So let's talk about those things. Although they are also covered in the videos, I wanted to summarize what we are going to do over the next 15 or 16 weeks, if you count the spring break. As I said, we will have lectures, but I will not be spending much time in the classroom explaining the concepts. Instead, at your convenience, you watch the videos that are posted, go through the PowerPoint, read the book, and read anything else that I have assigned you to read. And in the classroom, we will be solving problems, okay? And it worked wonderfully well last semester. Students, I think many students said they really enjoyed those sessions, and uh, it was a it was very enjoyable for me too, going to each room, talking about the problems, and then um, it was. I mean, I fondly remember the class meetings. I mean, I couldn't have asked for more from those meetings. Those are called class exercises. Okay, and you have to have your video and audio on. You might ask, why do you need those things? Why do you need to have the video on, for example? But it does make a lot of difference seeing your classmates, talking to them about the problems, and then things, you'll be much more engaged with that. If you do those class exercises carry credit, and if you don't have your video and audio on, and if you don't come to class, you don't get credit for those. Okay, so it is a requirement. There are 3 programming assignments. The central idea is to expose you to slightly new concepts, help you review material that you might have learned so that you are ready for the class material that comes. Uh, I mean, the really big part of the design and implementation topics that will come your way after 5 weeks or so. So you should do those assignments, take that as an opportunity for refreshing your knowledge and filling in any gaps. That is the main focus. They should be done independently. Before coming to class, as I said, you should watch the videos, look at the PowerPoint slides, read whatever relevant chapters are in the book, uh, and any other reading assignments. And you must take a quiz, which you should complete the day before class. So we meet on Tuesdays, so you should complete those quizzes by Monday evening. So the first of those quizzes will be due by 11:59 p.m. on January 18th. One of you pointed out that I had the wrong date in the syllabus. I had written January 11th, which was yesterday. That is incorrect. The first quiz is due on January 18th.
What time are those gonna open up?
They are open now, I think. Then there are 3 exams, February 9th, March 23rd, and April 27th. There is no final per se. There are just 3 exams. So the first exam is in week 5, and it will cover everything that we cover from weeks 1 through 4. There will be some material assigned to you to read and videos for you to watch in the exam week, but we will not have a class exercise in any day when there is an exam. So there is no class exercise on February 9th, March 23rd, and April 27th. We come here, and within 5 minutes, we will start the exam. The exam will contain 2 parts. One is like multiple choice, true, false kind of questions. The other one will be 2 or 3 questions asking you to implement programs or submit a design. The last exam, as I said before, is not cumulative. So the second exam will focus on stuff that we do in weeks 5 through 9. And the last exam will focus on material covered in weeks 10 through 14. Then there are 2 group projects. So they will be assigned around week 5 or 6. Actually, it's week 6, actually. It's here. And you can form your own groups if you want. Each group will have about 4 students, max 5. And I would like at least 3 students in a group. So 3 to 5 members. And you will be meeting with me almost every week, except when there is unless there is an exam. So the first group project will be assigned in week 6, but we'll try to form a group maybe a couple of weeks before that. And anyway, as soon as we form the groups, every week I would like to meet with you. So that will happen as you are doing your group work for the class exercises. So I will jump into a room, and then when you're ready and when I am ready, we can have that meeting to see how things are going on with your group project. There you can clarify, ask me clarifying questions and stuff like that. So that is going to be quite helpful to have those meetings. So those are the things that we will be doing in this course. So your big question would then be how I will be giving you a letter grade. They will be based on all these things. So the individual programming assignments, group projects, the class exercises, the quizzes that you take before coming to class, and the 3 exams. There are 3 programming assignments, 50 points each, for a total of 150. 2 group projects for a total of 200. Class exercises, 12 of those. In week 5, week 10, and week 15, there is no class exercise because we have exams. So 12 of those for a total of 240. Home quizzes, the quizzes that you take before coming to class, 11 of those for a total of 110, and 3 exams for a total of 300. They add up to 1,000. But then there is a minimum point requirement for each category. If you don't get 150 points at least for exams, or at least 120 points in the group projects, your maximum grade is going to be a C minus. Okay. And if you don't get the minimum categories in the minimum points in the other categories, your grade will be lower by 1 shade. Okay. So you should look at that, all those requirements.
Dr. Dathan,
Yeah.
quick question. What if we get put in a group that it just doesn't seem to be working out with the projects and all that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I understand.
So what happens then with the the minimum points?
Yeah. Let me. I mean, one can envisage extremely bad scenarios, but let's see it from a practical viewpoint. That might put you at ease. Last semester, for the first group project, we had 7 groups. Okay. And I'm not naming any names, but one group had issues. There were I think I didn't know until the end of the group project. Everything seemed fine to me as I was chatting with them every week, and they had serious issues, and they did not do all that well in the group project. They got, I think, in the lower 70s out of 100. I mean, I think they somehow finished the group work, but their score was one of the lowest. Then there was another, so they wanted to reform the group, in the sense they didn't want certain people in the group, etc., etc. So for the second group project, we had some students had to leave the group, others came in. Similarly, there was another group where a couple of members expressed a desire to go to another group. They didn't do all that badly. They got close to 80, if I remember correctly. And there was yet a third group where one member wanted out. So we had 8 groups for the second group project. And things worked out much better in the second group project for every group. And things didn't go badly overall. So it is quite likely, I mean, not quite, I don't want to say quite likely, it is possible that you get into a group where some students don't do the work, or some students don't get along, whatever. That has happened in the past more often. And last semester, I decided that I'm going to meet with each group on a weekly basis. And that did not solve all problems, because there was a group that did not, no group actually reported any problems to me.
So,
Yeah,
so if we feel like there might be a problem, even if it's like day one of the group meeting, we tell you right away.
that is my preference. But of course, the thing is, you should, I think what you should do is see whether there is going to be any serious issue as soon as you start. Of course, you can't really predict all that, but if there is an issue, try to resolve it within the group, and come to me if it doesn't seem possible. And
Okay. Okay. Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you.
yeah. Let me add one more thing. Another faculty member who used to teach capstone, okay, he had an interesting thought about these issues. What he does is, if a group member has to leave a group, if a student has to leave a group for whatever reason, they carry with them all the work done by the group until the point they leave the group, okay? So that they are not, I mean, the assumption is that they have contributed to that much work. So it is a good idea to identify problems early and try to resolve them within the group in a very cordial manner. And if not, have all the group members come to me as a group and then chat about the issues. I mean, I think it was 3 years ago when I had the worst experience. There was a group where a couple of students were extremely bitter about each other, and they called each other names, and that was an extremely bad experience. But I haven't had anything close to that after that point, fortunately. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Now let me tell you something else regarding these minimum points. For example, 150 out of 300 for the 3 exams. There was a student last semester who was wondering, what would happen if I didn't get 150? And my answer was, in all the sections that I taught in ICS 372, and every year I had taught, except in 2015 when I was on sabbatical, there were 3 students who could not make this minimum points for the exams. And I don't expect, that would be a very unusual situation if you cannot meet the minimum in any one of these categories. Okay. So I wouldn't look at that in any negative manner at all, but it is just a way to ensure a minimum quality control, so that if a student who shouldn't be in this class ends up completing the course with just like, I mean, I don't want them to get anything more than a C minus when they can't even make 150 out of 300. That is the reason. So you shouldn't be worrying too much about these minimum points.
Professor Dathan, most people pass this course, right?
Last semester, everybody who stayed till the end passed. That is almost always the case. There were situations where students have gotten Ds because they did not get the minimum points for the group projects. There were like 2 or 3 one semester, and there were 3 students total among the few hundred students that I have taught in 372 who didn't make the minimum exams score.
Dr. Dathan,
Yes.
I'm sorry to bring this up again. I'm really worried about the group projects, especially in these times with COVID and all that and everything being virtual. I don't right now. I don't know what a group project looks like as far as the requirements and all that. But is it possible I can, if I'm not okay with my group, I can finish the whole project by myself?
That would be difficult. Sorry. The reason being, we want people to be doing group projects. I think it is good to, it is okay to be apprehensive about it, but it need not be that way. All right. Why would a group not work? It could be because of a few reasons. Some students are, there may be a student who cannot, who doesn't have the right background and is not able to complete the work on time. Then if you recognize that, then it may be a good idea to assign them to do things that are within their reach. For example, documentation is a little easier to do than coding. More boring, but less demanding. The other thing is all personality stuff, as far as I can see. Or students don't come to meetings. That is a serious thing. I mean, if you commit to a meeting and if you don't come, then that is an issue. And what we will then do is if a student is unwilling to do the work, then that student has to be penalized. I mean, there has to be some justice. So then that student will get a lower grade than the other members of the group. Okay. The other thing is, of course, personality. I mean, some students may be too aggressive. They may not speak properly, even though they may not mean certain things. They may say things, and then that could be a personality that could lead to personality conflicts, and that can happen at work too. So that is something we should be cautious about. Yeah, it is. I mean, I know it can be. It can be an issue. There was one comment that I got after the during the break from a student. That student said that he was very apprehensive about the group projects, but then he had a very pleasant experience in the group project. I mean, I could see that the entire group had meshed very well. They worked so well. It was everybody contributed. It was a very pleasant experience. And if after a week or so, if you think you are not going to be okay with that group, we can do some reassignments earlier than later. So, but unfortunately, most computer science programs across the country require group work, so we cannot relax that requirement.
I mean, in the real world, we're going to have to work with our fellow developers.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, that is true. That is a very good point. In the real world, you have to do it, and one has to, what do you call, just accept that fact. But the difficulty in the academic environment is this: everybody is an equal. There is no team leader. So you don't have the authority to dictate to somebody. If my boss tells me to do something, I better do it, right? Whereas if a fellow student says something, why should you do it?
That's the
Right?
concern. Yeah.
That is the concern. That is why I am going to act as the boss for every group. Okay. So if when I use the weekly meetings fruitfully, I don't want you to be bitching about your group members, but if there is a problem, if somebody is not doing the work, somebody is not coming to meetings, etc., talk to that person within the group in a very politely, and if that doesn't solve the problem, bring it to me as a group. And remember that everybody wants to do well in the course. So that is probably motivation enough for people to resolve things. If there is a student who thinks that they can ride on the back of others, they might not do that if they know that somebody else is watching over them. So I don't think you should be too worried about those issues. And in fact, the fact that you are worrying about it would put you on guard, and probably that will help you have a successful shot at the group projects. I think that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. I think just the biggest concern is not quite getting to the minimum points. For that would put me at C- or whatever it was.
I don't think you should be worried about it. I'll tell you, the first group project for most of you, if history is any evidence, you will get a lower score than the second group project. The second group project, I think, I don't remember the exact scores, but I think the minimum that anybody got was somewhere around 85 or 90 last semester. And that has been pretty much the case every semester. And the first group project, for whatever reason, I think I cannot pinpoint the reason. The scores are a little lower. They are probably averaging around upper 70s or 80, around that. But except for one semester where there was a group that completely did not understand certain concepts, nobody has failed to meet the minimum in the group projects. That was one semester where there was one group where they couldn't, they did not understand at all what was happening with certain concepts. But that is a very rare thing. Okay, now the assignments can be late, but you will lose 10% of your grade if you submit them late. Now, there is another thing. Sometimes it happens to us. I mean, you miss a deadline, or you forget to turn in something, or you submit something and that is completely the wrong file, whatever, or you miss a class and you would like to see how you can compensate for it, for the missed class exercise, those kinds of things. I allow two such mishaps. So there are two allowances for each student. You can use it whenever you wish. For example, if you are late with an assignment and you lose 10% of the grade, right? You could use this allowance and then have that waived. So if you are late by 2 days and if you use one allowance, then you are only late by 1 day. Or if you miss a quiz that you need to take and you want to use that allowance, you can take it after the deadline. But you must have a good excuse, and it must be the case that you make your request on time. For example, that is very much true for a quiz. If I already published the answers, then you can't ask to take it later. Okay. And if you don't use those allowances, and most students don't use any of those allowances, you get 4 points. It is probably not going to matter at all, but they are there. I mean, 4 points out of 1,000 is not going to change anybody's grade for the most part, but still they are there if you don't want to use it. But if you're going to lose 10 points, you might as well use those 2 points, because then you could get as much as 8 points out of it, right? Oh, one other thing, the quizzes that you take before class, you get 2 shots at it. You can take them twice. But if you want to take it a second time, you should get at least 50% in the first attempt. So you cannot just go there and take it and then say, okay, now let me, and then get a 0 and then hope to take it again. No, you have to get at least 50% to be eligible to take it a second time. And you will get the average of the 2 attempts as the score. Then
those
sorry,
like
just
this little 10 question problem or quizzes then, like 10 questions for 10 points?
Typically they have 10 questions, but there may be some where one question is worth 2 points or something, and then you may have like 9 questions. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Most of it will have like 10 questions.
Professor, are these quizzes and exams open notes and open book?
Everything is open notes, open book. You can search the web, you can do whatever you wish. The only thing you are not allowed to do is consult with a human being. That's it. With another human being except me. That's the only requirement.
Even on exams?
Yes. Exams are open book, open notes. You can Google, you can do whatever you wish, but do not send a message to another person. You do not ask anybody else. Okay? That's the only requirement. Then what else? Okay, there is a schedule here. There may be, I mean, one of you pointed out that I had this typo here. I hope there are no more typos, but I won't bet on it. Okay. As I said, the first 3 weeks, you will see a lot of stuff that you have seen before. And that is good in the sense you can refresh all that stuff. There is a time period in which you can catch up stuff that you might not know all that well. But there is also a danger in the sense you'll start seeing new topics, and they may come in a little here and there. So don't forget those. All right. And after week 3, starting lecture 4 onwards, most topics should be new to most of you. No meeting on March 9th. The second half, I wouldn't say the half, but the second, from here onwards, it is almost all boilerplate language. I'm not going to go over all this. This is stuff that I got from the university administration to put into the syllabus. I more or less copied and pasted them. So I'm not going to go over those, refer to those things, where you need. That's all I can say about that part. Any questions before we summarize the topics for tonight?
Yeah,
For-
Professor Nathan, if we already know like who we would want to be grouped with and have communicated with them and they're good with it, would be like, can I send you an email for that?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and you don't, I mean, for the other, if you know what your group is going to be, great. But I will also say that there is no need to hurry to the others. I will say that. You will be put into random groups for class exercises in the next, the first 4 weeks. And then you can see, you can get to meet new people and see how they function. You might see whether their wavelength meets yours and stuff like that. So don't be too nervous about it. If you don't know anybody in the class, you will meet people. Okay. Anything else that I can answer?
So the groups are randomly selected?
I like most semesters, some like as Garrett was saying, some students know who they want to work with, but then there are others who are less sure, and then I, it is horse trading. You know, you go to groups, go to people, and then say who is going to go where. It's a very
Just to clarify it, the group you select is for the projects, and then you're going to randomly assign us for the in-class exercises, right?
correct. And once your groups are formed for the group exercises, sorry, for the group projects, I will assign that group to the same room for the class exercises as well, so that you get to know each other more. You can do your work and then stay there if you want to discuss the project. And that is what happened last semester. I mean, tonight would be an exception, and there might be other exceptions too. But in many nights, for many groups, the class exercise was sometimes over by 8, and then by 8 p.m. And then they, like, more or less, and then they stayed back quite often, many of them, to just work on the group project. So that is a lot easier if I put the groups for the group projects together for the class exercises too. And it is easier for me too, because then I can come into the room and discuss the group project with that group. It makes it better for everybody. Anything else? Okay, let me stop sharing this, and I'll probably spend maybe 10-15 minutes going over the slides. Okay, let me go ahead and open that. Okay, here is the PowerPoint. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this PowerPoint. Maybe I'll try to finish this in 10 minutes. Let's see. Okay. When we have an object-oriented system, we view the system as a number of objects and their interactions with each other, all right? So every object has some data, and in Java, you term them fields, and then you have behavior. What does the object do? Those are called methods. And this is something that you may not have seen before, so I'll spend maybe a couple of minutes on this. We would like to design software that so that they are in modules. And what is a module? A module has a certain functionality, it has certain data, it encapsulates that data, and it provides certain operations. And two important properties of a module or modules are cohesion. That is, within a module, you don't want unrelated things. You don't want oil and water in the same container. They don't mix. So things have to be quite related to each other. You want, for example, a method, a Java method to do certain things, but you don't want unnecessary things to be done by it. Okay. Coupling means how dependent is one module on another. You will see this topic, these two things recurring so many times this semester. Okay. Then you should be able to modify your modules easily, and you should be able to test them. And this is something that I want to spend a little bit of time this semester, which I haven't done in the past semesters, is secure coding. How do you ensure that your code is secure, at least to some extent? Okay. Object-oriented paradigm is the approach of choice these days to develop application systems. And you will be in a very good, you'll be on a very good footing after this course to undertake object-oriented design and implementation. You will be learning lots and lots of useful techniques. The disadvantage of an object-oriented system is that they tend to be a little slow, and it's a little harder to learn the paradigm according to some people. But efficiency is not such a huge concern because nowadays hardware is so fast, it probably wouldn't be all that important. You can read about the history in the book. Classes, objects, fields, and methods. You have seen all this. This is how you declare a class, public class student, for example. And here is how you create an object. You say new, and then give the name of the class. And then in parentheses, you can put your parameters. Then a field stores information, and methods store or are behaviors. So for example, name is a field, set name is a method. This is called a setter. It changes a field. And this is called a getter. It gets the value of a field. Normally you make your fields private so that they are not exposed to code outside of the class. So for example, name here is private, which means the only place that you can access this particular field is between these two braces, this brace and this brace. Whereas these methods are all public, which means they're available from code outside the class. Stop me anytime if you are unsure of things. Constructors are things that get called when an object is created, and they have the same name as the class in which they are defined, like student. This is a constructor. You can have multiple constructors within the same class. For example, I have student with a student name as parameter, a student with the name and address as parameter. And you can call the second constructor from the first by writing this and then putting the parameters in parentheses so that you code only one constructor and then you can have it used from the others. This makes it a little easier for you to get a consistent behavior and also it helps with debugging because you need to fix only one thing. And if you fix this, everything else gets fixed too, more or less. Constructors cannot have a return type, no return statement, nothing of that kind, right? And there is a method called toString for every object, which you should use. And I'm not going to show it here. It is in one of the videos. In Eclipse, it is very easy to create the toString method. In fact, it is very easy to create constructors. It is very easy to create getters and setters and all that. So you should watch those videos that I have posted under assignments on using Eclipse. And okay, then there are static fields and methods. Static fields are fields that for which there is only
Professor?
one copy. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So should we consider Eclipse a requirement or not?
Yes, yes. Yeah, all the submissions must be as Eclipse Java projects. You may use IntelliJ, you may use NetBeans, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it has to be an Eclipse project. Otherwise, you lose some credit for your assignments and exams and group projects.
Thank you.
Yep. Then classes can be related. For example, there is a course class and we have a section. Like ICS 372 is a course, but then what we are doing right now, these Tuesdays, it's a section. That section is for a course, like section Spring 2021 online Tuesday 6 p.m. and the course is 372, which has its own syllabus and course outcomes and all that. Whereas the section itself is a different kind of stuff, so there is a relationship between courses and sections. So you create a course and then you create sections out of that course. Then there are collections, which you have done in 240. You can have lists or you can have trees, you can have hash sets and so on. So you can use arrays to store stuff. You can traverse them, etc. Right? So you can have linked lists, you can have array lists, and so on. Then there is this reference. This, if you put parentheses after this, it means it is a constructor call. If you use this period, it means it is referring to the object on whose behalf you are in a method. So you'll have a little bit of occasions to use this in the first assignment. Okay. So for example, here, I'm creating a section, new section, and then I'm writing this here. This means whatever object is in play here, if you call C1.create section, then this is C1. It is like saying me or I. You don't normally refer to yourself by your own name, right? So you would say I or me, give it to me, or I am going to Minneapolis, that kind of stuff. So this is essentially that, whichever object is executing this method. Then there are interfaces. Interface is a collection of methods without any body, at least for our purpose. Java has changed its concept of interfaces over the years, but we are not going to worry about the latest Java notion of interfaces. Here, all the methods are abstract. There is no body, as you can see. We are saying there is something called student list and it has these methods. It is for somebody else to actually create a class that would satisfy all this. So you would write student linked list implements student list and give body for all these methods. Okay. Then there are abstract classes. That is, if you want a class, you know some fields, you know some methods, but you don't know how to implement the other methods. You don't know how to complete the implementation because you don't know certain fields, whatever. Then you create an abstract class. Okay, that is essentially what I have for the subject matter. As you might have seen, you know most of these things. We will work on that in the class exercise. But let me also say a few words about the first programming assignment. It is due next week. We meet on Tuesdays, so it is due. All the individual programming assignments are due on Wednesdays. So the first assignment is due on the 20th by 11:59 p.m. The reason I made it Wednesdays is because you get a chance to ask last minute questions in the class meeting, right? So next week, you might have done 90% or 95%, or you might have even finished. You might be having some lingering questions. Those things you should ask either before and have a meeting with me or whatever, or if you didn't do that, you could ask me in class at that point so that you finish it off the next day and submit it. As I said, the submission has to be an Eclipse Java project. The videos and the assignment handout tell you how to construct the project. It has to be, the project has to be named with your last name, then the word assignment 1 or assignment 2, if it is a second assignment, etc. It is not enough that the zip file itself be called that way. It is important that the project should be named that way so that I can easily identify that project in my Eclipse window. Then you should document your work. You should write meaningful comments for all classes, all interfaces, if there are interfaces, and all methods unless they are getters or are overriding things. Or for all constructors, you will lose points if you don't do that. Then all if statements, else parts, etc. should all be in blocks. So there is a document on D12. Let me show you that. So let me spend 1 minute on that. Let me share the D12 site here. Okay. Spend 5 minutes on that.
Which version of Java should we use?
Okay, here, the D12 site has assignments which contain some videos on Eclipse and stuff, and then also the assignment handout. Then there are some readings here. I may post more stuff here. Then all the lectures I copied from last semester. Oh, I don't have anything for the first lecture. Okay, that's fine. Right. Then, oh, the week 1 is here at the bottom. All right. Yeah, it should have been at the top.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize. And then there are videos. They run sometimes like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever. I ask you to watch every video. They are copied from last semester, so there may be some slight inconsistencies, but they'll be very, 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 very minor. So you don't worry too much about it. I may change some videos for, especially for, let's see.
I think coding standards is in like the top category. It's the table.
Yeah,
of
the
contents,
coding standards
so
is
Yeah.
here. So that is a PDF document that you should follow very carefully. Okay. So in
And
fact,
earlier, did you say you wanted us to? We don't need to comment on getters and setters, or just getters? Like you want us to comment setters?
you don't need to comment getters or setters. You don't need to comment anything that you are overriding. There is no harm in commenting them, but you don't have to. But you should use /** to begin your comment. Okay.
Professor?
And, yeah.
So sorry to interrupt. Someone had asked earlier, and I don't know if it was very loud or not, but about what JDK version we should be using.
You should use something above a 1.8.
Okay. Then my question was, is there a linter that you have available for these style guidelines, or do we just need to do them by hand?
The formatting of the code you're asking?
Right. Some languages and some programs, you have a sort of a syntax verifier for style guidelines you can use.
Yeah. Okay.
That's available.
In Eclipse, if you actually I think I have put it into your video. There is a simple way by which you can enforce code formatting. Give me a second. Maybe let me see whether there is. I can show you that video here. If it is there, I will let you watch it. This may be it. Yeah, like I think it is this video that will do the thing, or maybe I don't remember exactly where. I mean,
what the method does. Right.
Okay, that is not the one. That is not the one. Let's see here.
It's the useful Eclipse tips one. But there's something wrong with the video. So although your instructions are very easily understood, I don't think, well, go ahead and play it. You'll see what I'm talking about.
I don't want to hear my own voice. That's the problem. Okay. Yeah.
To highlight some of the on your Eclipse
I don't want to play the whole thing because it
have to
runs
do
for
that
8 minutes.
only once per.
What was your question?
You have to just go to the source document, source section, and you have got format over there. I mean, in Eclipse
Yeah.
EDI.
I don't know. I don't remember whether I showed that in this video, but this video probably concentrates on generating constructors and getters and setters and all that. Oh, one thing here I wanted to show you since I am on this. I wanted to talk about this, but here you can generate the equals method in Eclipse, but notice that this uses lousy parameter names like obj. I will take off points if you leave it like obj. It should be object. I want full words. Okay. And here another thing is it doesn't have the curly brackets after the if condition. For every if statements, for every else part, for every loop, I need the curly brackets. So generating the equals method is fine, except that using Eclipse is fine, except that it doesn't do some things properly. And I think there was a comment on how to format. So let me go ahead and show you that. Give me a minute. Let me quit this. Let me go ahead and quickly show you how to format stuff. Okay. Let me share the Eclipse window. All right. When you create or rather, how do you get this to format your code? At some point, I will post this code, but here you can see that all the fields are indented. The code within the constructor is indented, and there is proper spacing before and after the equals, between, after the comma, etc. And you can see that even if I had it like this, and if I save this, see, it inserted the space. How do I get this done automatically? The way you interact in Windows is different from Mac. I think in Windows, you will go to Window Preferences. Here you go to Eclipse Preferences. That is probably the only difference. And you need to go to Java, then I think it is Editor. Click on Save Actions, and you see that I have checked perform the selected actions on save, format source code, format all lines, and then you apply and close. Then Eclipse will take care of 90% of all the formatting that you need, if not 100%. And there is simply no reason for you not to do that. You need to do that only once per workspace. So it takes maybe a minute, and you can save a few points every time you submit a project. Otherwise, you have to do all that work manually. Okay, I would suggest, I highly recommend that you do that. And when you turn in a project, make sure that you have names like this: Datan assignment 3, my last name, then assignment 3. Right click this, export, and then click General Archive File, next, and then
We're not seeing that window popped up.
Sorry?
We're not seeing the windows that pop
Oh,
up.
yeah, that is true. That is true. I see. Okay, I see what you mean. Okay, let me change the share a little bit here. Yeah, that is sometimes a problem here, right? Give me 1 second. Change the share here to desktop. Yep. Right. I don't know how to show you all my secrets. That's the problem. Right here. If I should right click before I submit my project, then export, click archive file, then click next. And then here I browse to a folder, choose a zip file name, and submit that stuff. Okay. It is not enough to have the zip file named your last name assignment1.zip. The project itself has to be named with your last name and the assignment number, all right? And one thing I would strongly urge you to get a habit of is use this refactor thing. Refactor, right click something and then click refactor. You can rename things, you can do a lot of stuff, including renaming. For example, if you had something called X and you want to change it to counter, you would use rename. And this can be done very quickly. You just type the new name, it will be applied at the proper places in no time. You can use source and then generate constructors. You can generate the equals method, getters, toString, etc., etc. I would let you explore all that. There is simply no reason for you not to use those things. you all have learned what constructors are, what methods are. I don't want you to be wasting time on those things, spending time typing in all those getters and setters and stuff like that. It's just a waste of time. Learn important things, things that you don't know, and focus on that so that you are very proficient in this paradigm. That is what I would like you to do. Okay. Any questions before we take the attendance and start the class exercise?
Professor, I'm looking at the assignment 1 here, and it says that there's it says a X integer. Did you? I know you want us to rename them. Is that one fine as X and Y or no?
For X and Y, they are perfectly fine, because X means everybody knows that X means the X coordinate, so that they are perfectly fine. There are very few exceptions like that. X and Y are perfectly fine. If there was a third dimension, Z would have been just as fine.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Then what was I thinking? Yeah, I should now stop the recording. I'm going to take attendance, and then we will form the groups and then start the class exercise.